T is here with the papers. I think there's going to be one thread which is going to run through the papers all this week. Could it be Donald Trump?
It might be, Stuart. In fact, it is. Yes, it's all the paper seems to be talking about today. While he's been preparing his inauguration ceremony, the U.S. president-elect has been scolded, chided and criticized this weekend, Stuart. Let's start with the CIA Director John Brennan, the outgoing CIA Director, who's lashed out at Trump, especially for his criticism of U.S. intelligence agencies. Brennan called Trump's comments offensive, and The Guardian reports on its front page that Brennan said that Trump now has the opportunity to do something concrete for national security, as opposed to, quote, talking and tweeting about it.
And Donald Trump's also given a series, really, of different interviews to different newspapers over the weekend, hasn't he?
Well, let's start with the Washington Post. He spoke to them on the weekend, giving a bit more insight into what he plans for post-Obamacare. Trump said the Republican plan for health care is, quote, down to the final strokes, saying the goal is insurance for everybody, but also saying that he wants to force drug companies to negotiate directly with the government on drug prices. Now, across the Atlantic, Trump has given one of his first European interviews to the British daily The Times and Bild. It's a double whammy interview. He has reiterated his stance on a number of issues. First of all, criticizing Angela Merkel for taking in so many refugees last year. He also said he would agree to a nuclear weapons reduction deal with Russia in exchange for lifting sanctions. And he plans to impose travel restrictions on Europeans coming to America, but also extreme vetting on those coming from parts of the world known for extreme terror.
Now, if you've managed to miss it, Donald Trump's going to be inaugurated this Friday. One article from the Scottish Sunday Herald has gone, well, viral. Tell us why, Dipti.
It's a great article. If you looked at the TV guide section of the Scottish Sunday Herald, you might have seen one cheeky preview. Reviewer Damien Love has actually previewed Trump's presidency, which he says begins with a feature-length, a gaudy inauguration ceremony. And he describes it as a story that begins in a nightmarish version of 2017, calling the presidency a flawed piece, but a disturbing glimpse of the horrors we could stumble into if we're not careful, and I think we have not been careful.
It is very, very strange to see that in a TV guide, isn't it? Bahrain now, completely different story. The state has executed 3 Shiite men, and it's been condemned by human rights activists as well.
Well, this is a really important story because these 3 men were executed by firing squad on the weekend in Bahrain. It's the first in 6 years, and it has been condemned by human rights activists because they say the men were, first of all, associated with the anti-government opposition. They also say that their executions were sparked they didn't get a fair trial. Now, their executions, of course, sparked nationwide protests on the weekend in Bahrain. And it's important to note that Bahrain's president is from the ruling Sunni minority. These 3 men were Shiite men, and of course it has sparked condemnation from Iran and Hezbollah. The Lebanese newspaper Al-Akhbar, which is actually close to Hezbollah, says in what's quite an angry article that the Emirate leaders were actually behind the decision to execute the 3 men. They say that political intervention influenced the Bahrain's decision to carry out the executions, alleging that the men confessed to their crimes under torture.
Brazil now, another 26 people killed this weekend in ongoing riots there.
Well, the Brazilian daily A Folha de São Paulo reports that the latest prison riots took place in the prison of Alcaçuz near Natal. Now, the prisoners were once again members of rival gangs who managed to get out of their cells. The victims were primarily from Sindicato de Crime, that's a gang, one of the 2 gangs. And it's a third such deadly prison riot since the beginning of the year. The paper reports that 134 people have been killed in just the first fortnight of 2017, prompting a very, desperate editorial from the paper. They call for a radical reorientation of Brazil's crime politics. I quote, "It is shameful that we needed to wait for a massacre of over 100 prisoners for penal authorities to urgently bring into question the, quote, medieval nature of Brazilian prisons."
Very, very quickly, something that animal rights activists will be hailing. This is the end of this mythical circus in the US.
It's called the Ringling Circus. It's performing its last show later this year. It's actually almost 150 years old, the Wall Street Journal reports. But the show has faced dwindling sales and higher production costs, but especially it has come under fire for its animals and the use of animals and the mistreatment of animals in its circus. It's just the latest circus to face the axe, prompting the Daily to wonder if people's consciousness is sort of turning away from animal-based circuses and perhaps towards more acrobatic-based circuses.
Whatever you feel about it, certainly an end of an era. Thank you very much, Dipsy. Deep with the papers.